A lot of people say, well, Rafi, if what you're saying comes true and the dollar either falls by, 95, 99% from where it is now, do you think the West or America can survive that kind of upheaval? And what are we doing stacking gold and silver if people are just going to be so desperate they're just going to go out the streets and steal things? I mean, what do you think it's going to look like?
Well, I mean, gold and silver at least will allow you to conveniently store your purchasing power. That's what people are doing. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a major game changer. And the problem is the way the political parties have been moving in recent years is everybody's shifted left. The Republicans have also moved left. They're left of center. They want big government. They want government to be involved in the economy, to be involved in central planning, to be working in partnership with businesses. They want bigger deficits, more government spending, more money printing by the Fed.
Quick favor before we begin: if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and share it. Every like and share helps YouTube recommend this video to more people, which really helps the channel grow. Peter Schiff and Rafi Farber discuss a troubling scenario in which the US dollar could lose most of its value, raising concerns about economic survival and social stability. Farber addresses a common question from investors who wonder whether holding gold and silver would matter if a severe financial collapse led to widespread desperation and disorder. He explains that precious metals serve as a practical way to preserve purchasing power when fiat currencies weaken dramatically. The conversation then shifts to politics and economic policy. Schiff argues that both major political parties have moved toward larger government involvement in the economy. According to him, even Republicans increasingly support policies associated with central planning, closer partnerships between government and business, larger deficits, higher public spending, and continued Federal Reserve intervention. He warns that these trends contribute to long-term financial risks and could accelerate currency weakness. Overall, the discussion highlights concerns about inflation, government expansion, and the importance of hard assets during uncertain times. Now, we present the clips from their interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell icon. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Silver did have a huge run. It went from $30 up to about 120 in just a few short months. And now people are scared because it's back around 60. But the key to silver is that it broke through the $50 resistance that had really controlled the market since 1980. And it turned back the 2011 rally. Even when gold almost hit 2000, silver couldn't get back above its 1980 peak. Whereas gold, of course, the 1980 peak was around 850. So gold went through the high. Silver, couldn't until just recently, until earlier this year. So it's had a significant correction, which has scared a lot of people because, it's down 50%. Yes, but it's still $60 an ounce. So
It's also the third time this has happened since 1980. It's not like silver hasn't done this before. It's done it
well,
before.
it hasn't done something this big. But, I was just on a show with somebody earlier today who was trying to argue that this is going to be another, decade-long top. Like silver is not going to make a new high for 10 or 20 years. And the same with gold. I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, look at what's going on with the central banks right now. Look at the $40 trillion national debt. Look at how much the deficits are exploding, the net cost in interest payments, the amount of inflation that's going to be created to monetize this debt in the next 5 to 10 years is going to dwarf all the inflation the Fed has created since its inception in 1913 until today. So to say that gold and silver prices are just going to stay where they are during all that, while the price of everything else just goes through the roof?
My thesis is that there's only going to be one more financial crisis. I don't know exactly what's going to trigger it, but once that happens and the Fed has to print again 4, 5, 6, $7 trillion to rescue whatever the hell it is that they're rescuing, that's going to be it. I don't think the dollar is going to survive in the way that it has this next financial crisis. I think there's going to be one more and that's it.
Yeah. And, I didn't even know that it was going to have the last one, to be honest with you. So it's already on borrowed time. But I agree, this is an enormous bubble. There are any one of a number of pins that could end up pricking it. We just don't know which one, but it will be one, if not several. It's hard to say. But there's a lot of air that's going to come out. And the fact that it's gotten this big and been inflating for so long means that there's going to be a lot more damage. And it's not just that the damage comes when the bubble pops. The damage has been building up over the years where the bubble's been forming. It's just that when it pops is when the consequences really rear their heads. And the consequences are going to be enormous. And I think that you're right in that this next crisis is not another financial crisis in the sense that we've experienced. It will be a dollar crisis and a sovereign debt crisis. So that takes it to a whole new level, because if it's a garden variety kind of crisis, the government can bail everybody out, because the government can come in and print money and make good on the losses and prop people up and bail them out. But when the government itself is at the center of the crisis, when the confidence is lost in sovereign debt, in treasuries, in the US dollar itself, the bailouts don't work. The stimulus doesn't work. It just fuels the fire. So that is where we're headed, where the medicine that we've always relied on not only won't work, but will actually make us sicker. And the reality is it never really worked. It didn't work in the sense that it cured the disease. It just made the symptoms go away for a while, so we can pretend that everything was okay. But during this next crisis, we won't be able to operate under that pretense anymore. And so that's what's going to be so different about it. And then the question is, what's going to happen in the aftermath of the crisis?
Yeah, I'm worried about that too. I also wanted to ask your opinion on that, because a lot of people say, well, Rafi, if what you're saying comes true and the dollar either falls by 99% from where it is now, and people who had all of this purchasing power that they imagine they have, suddenly they wake up the next morning and they don't have it. That's a real societally destabilizing force. Do you think the West or America can survive that kind of upheaval? And what are we doing stacking gold and silver if people are just going to be so desperate they're just going to go out the streets and steal things? I mean, what do you think it's going to look like?
Well, I mean, gold and silver at least will allow you to conveniently store your purchasing power. That's what people are doing. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a major game changer. And the problem is the way the political parties have been moving in recent years is everybody's shifted left. The Democrats have gone full socialist, right? Where they're not in the closet anymore. They're like, yeah, we're socialists and we admit it, right? And they're proud of it. The Republicans have also moved left. They're left of center. They want big government. They want government to be involved in the economy, to be involved in central planning, to be working in partnership with businesses. They want bigger deficits, more government spending, more money printing by the Fed. And in fact, interestingly enough, J.D. Vance just gave a talk at the Nixon Library, where he was praising Richard Nixon as, hey, he's a great guy and he's making a comeback, and who cares about Watergate? And I didn't really care so much about Watergate. I mean, I did, but I care more about the liberal policies that Nixon pursued.
So I wanted to switch topics here a little bit to what you were talking on your last show, and I wasn't even aware of this. I talk about the pyramid that starts with gold and goes up layer by layer by layer, ultimately to Bitcoin. I just want to reiterate it here. That it's not really Extra's pyramid, but it's all a derivative layer pyramid that starts with gold, and then dollar was originated as a derivative of gold. It was a receipt for a certain amount of gold. On top of that, you have bank deposits, which is a promise for paper dollars. On top of deposits, you have a promise for dollars, which is debt or treasuries. On top of that, you have everything that treasuries are based on all the other debt.
Yeah,
keeps going until you get to Bitcoin.
Yeah, but
right?
Originally, the dollar wasn't a promise to pay gold. The dollar was gold. The dollar was defined by a weight of gold. That's actually what it was. Federal Reserve notes originally were promises to pay dollars. They were notes for dollars. The Fed had the dollars, the gold coins, and it issued notes that were redeemable in those gold coins. That's why, like, if you had a $20 bill, it said payable to bearer on demand, $20 in gold.
Right.
The note, and that's why it's called a note, right? A Federal Reserve note is a liability of the Fed. The Fed has made a promise to pay something. Well, what are they going to pay? They're going to pay dollars. The dollars are gold. The dollars are silver. And so that's our money. Then when, of course, we went off the gold standard, we transformed a note to pay dollars and said, well, that's going to be the dollar now. The IOU for the dollar becomes the dollar. It's like you go and check your coat at a restaurant, and they give you a piece of paper and you give them your coat. And then when you go back to get your coat, instead of giving you your coat back, they just give you your claim check back and say, that's your coat now. That's what that's what you got.
Yeah.
I know, but you can't wear it warm. It's not a real coat. It was an IOU for a coat, but maybe somebody stole the coat, so they don't have it anymore. So they just give back your claim check. So that's what the Fed did. Hey, we're not going to give you the gold, but you can keep the claim check.
Silver has been on a wild ride, climbing from around $30 to nearly $120 before pulling back towards $60. But is this correction a warning sign, or just part of a much bigger move? In this interview, we break down why silver's breakout above the long-standing $50 resistance level matters, how it compares to gold's past performance, and why today's economic backdrop could be setting up something far larger than previous cycles. We also discuss central banks, rising debt, exploding deficits, inflation, and the possibility of one final major financial crisis, with the national debt near historic extremes and the Federal Reserve likely to respond with even more money printing. The question becomes whether the dollar can survive in its current form. This conversation examines gold, silver, the debt bubble, and what investors should watch closely as the next crisis takes shape. Let's get into the interview.
When the dollar was collapsing and gold was reaching its 1980 apex, that's when he was the most popular. That's when he got elected.
Yes, because inflation was a problem, and we had the misery index, high interest rates, high inflation. And at that point, the public was like, yep, I blame government, because Ronald Reagan said, government isn't the solution, government is the problem.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
And he had a great personality. He was, an actor. So he knew how to act in front of a camera, and he was passionate about his beliefs, right? And so that was great. But here we are now. The Republican Party has moved back to the Rockefeller days, where they have more in common with Nixon than Reagan. And the Democrats are all the way left, even left of where McGovern was, or where Humphrey were. I mean, the guys that we got now, the AOCs and stuff like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, they're certifiably nuts, but yeah, it's a different thing.
So we're way left. So the problem is we're now going to get this big, big crisis, way worse than anything we've experienced. And you're going to have the Democrats, especially if it blows up before Trump finishes this term, right? You're going to have the Democrats saying, we told you so, capitalism doesn't work. We need to completely overhaul our entire system, and redo it in a socialist, communist kind of, mold, because capitalism destroyed us, right? And then the Republicans are going to have to somehow defend capitalism, even though they helped to destroy it. But they're already very left, and they're going to want big government programs too. So, the question is, can we do what we did in 1980? Can we recognize the true source of our problems, central planning, central banking, and that we need less government, right? Like the people in Argentina, and they elected Milei. Now, it took a long time for the Argentine voter to be as disappointed and as frustrated in government to finally take a chance on capitalism. But it was after years and years of broken government promises and abject failure. So I don't know, what it's going to be like in the U.S. But, I am trying my best, and I'm doing interviews like I'm doing your interview. I'm doing all kinds of interviews, and I do my own podcasts, so that people will know that when this happens, why it happened, and that the politicians that are telling you that they're the salvation are your damnation. They're the ones that created the problem. Just like I warned about the 2008 financial crisis, and, somebody made that Peter Schiff was right video, and a lot of people saw that. Hopefully I'm going to create a much bigger record and influence even more people so that they understand that I'm right again. And the stakes are a lot bigger now, as far as, not giving into the temptation to go all in on socialism and to reject it completely and to allow capitalism to solve these problems. Because the problems are solvable if we get the government out of the way. And it doesn't mean they're solvable immediately without any pain. They're not. There will be pain for certain people. Certain people may get immediate relief. It kind of depends on where you are. But at the end of the day, the entire country will be better off if we do the right thing, which is go down the road of free market capitalism and start dismantling all the government that we've created over the years and return to sound money and get rid of all the Fed and the central bank money printing. But, we've been living in this fantasy for decades now. The transformation to reality is gonna be a little bit rough. Now, maybe AI will ease the pain. We'll see. There's a lot of potential there for increased productivity from artificial intelligence and robotics. We'll see.
What makes moments like these so important is that they force people to look beyond headlines, political talking points, and short-term market reactions. Major economic shifts rarely happen overnight. They build gradually through years of decisions, incentives, and policies that often go unnoticed until the consequences become impossible to ignore. History shows that every generation eventually faces a turning point where old assumptions are challenged and long-held beliefs are put to the test. The real value isn't in predicting every detail of what comes next. It's in understanding the bigger forces at work so you can think independently, ask better questions, and make more informed decisions about the future. Whether you agree with every argument presented or not, these discussions provide a chance to step back and examine the broader picture rather than getting caught up in the noise of the day. The more informed people become, the better prepared they are to navigate uncertainty and recognize opportunities that others may miss. If you enjoyed this conversation and want more deep dives into economics, markets, investing, and the ideas shaping the future, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upcoming discussion.